Hey fam, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another segment of It's Getting Real. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we have a lot to discuss. When I do videos like these, I try to make sure that I give some information about the victims and the survivors of these crimes. I try to make sure that it's more information about them than about the people who've done acts to them. And that's because we often don't remember the people that are no longer here. Instead, what and whom we remember are the vile human beings that have committed certain acts. In this case, you will be hearing more about the perpetrator than you will about the kids. And I absolutely hate that. So I want to make sure that in the beginning of this video, I say, rest in peace to Dwayne, Jade, John, Jack, Jesse, and Jaden. Now, 5 of them passed on the morning of May 11th, which was when this fire happened. The eldest son, Dwayne, passed a few days later in the hospital. Dwayne Philpott at that time was 13. He died in Brigham Children's Hospital 2 days after the fire. If I'm pronouncing these words wrong, please forgive me. He was described as charming and a caring ladies' man. The eldest son of his mother's children, he took pride in protecting his younger siblings. He played the violin. He enjoyed music. He was described by educators as modest, hardworking, and always looking to improve his skills. His sister, Jade Philpott, was 10. She was the beauty of the bunch, described as intelligent, a princess, and a mother hen to her little brothers, known for her manners and being everyone's friend, and someone who was known to uplift the entire classroom whenever she was there. There was John. He was 9. He was described as a cheeky chappy. I hope I said that right. Lively and ready to pick a fight with the boys. Teachers at his school say that he was cheerful and smiley and polite. He, as young as he was, knew that he wanted to be a soldier in the army when he got older. There was Jack, who was 8, described as bashful and shy. He was the quietest of the children and a light to be around. He, like some of his siblings, had beautiful blue eyes. He loved gaming and he was eager to learn. He was described as a computer geek. There was Jesse James, who was 6. Jesse was described as a cheerful young man, mischievous, a big character in the family, but despite him being mischievous, he had a caring and loving nature. The youngest of his siblings was somebody that he always looked after, which brings us to Jaden. Jaden, at the time of his death, was 5 years old. He was described as a whirlwind, nicknamed the miracle baby by his parents because he was born prematurely. He looked up to his other siblings. He was described as hyperactive. It is said that he was often messy, always getting into things, that he loved being outdoors, but more than anything, he loved play fighting with his siblings. So that is 6 children. 6 children that are no longer here because of this selfish man. I want to put it out here right now that their father is responsible for them no longer being here. I also want to point out that this could have been avoided. Mick Philpott was born on November 4th, 1957 in Derby, England. He was raised by his single mother who struggled at times to make ends meet. As a child, he exhibited behavioral issues that would later manifest themselves into more serious criminal activities. So there were signs. He has always been a danger and he has always been a vile human being. Let me give you one of those instances. So when he was 19 years old, he met and started dating a woman by the name of Kim. Now, she is a woman based on gender. She is not a woman based in age. Because at 15, in my opinion, You aren't a woman and you definitely shouldn't be dating this 19-year-old man. That alone is a problem to me. He was extremely abusive to her during the course of their relationship. He often verbally as well as physically attacked her. So she gets tired of him and she finally gets the courage to break things off with him. At this point, she's 17, he's 21. Now, some sources say 22, but she says 21, so I'm going to say 21. She thought that she was done and she was free of him, but she wasn't, because little to her knowledge, he had been following Kim as she went to various places since she broke things off with him. So she goes out for a night with some friends, she comes home, she goes to bed. He sneaks into the home, into Kim's bedroom. As I said, she is 17, she's a teenager, she's asleep in her bed. She is awoken to him stabbing her. I need you to understand, he did not stab her one time. This is what she said in her interview. I thought he was punching me. He went off and I got myself out of bed, but I just fell on the floor. The next thing I knew, he was attacking me again. He slit my stomach open, all down my back and the tops of my legs and arms. He punctured both lungs and went through my liver and my kidney. I was stabbed 27 times. He left me for dead. He stabbed her 27 times before turning the knife on her mother, who tried to assist and help her daughter after she heard her daughter's screams. He ends up stabbing her mother 11 times and doing a lot of damage there as well. The only reason why he stopped is because her younger sister, Crystal, who's 15 at the time, hears the screams and decides she's going to call the police. Now, her wounds were so severe that Kim, according to medical professionals, died twice. Once in the ambulance, she had to be revived, and again on the operating table. She spent 8 weeks in intensive care due to her injuries. I'm telling you all this because I need you to understand that this man's crimes should have been stopped then. After that type of violence, he should have not been able to have any contact, in my opinion, with other women, because he's shown at this young age of 21 that he is a problem. So after he attacks her before the ambulance transport and all those other things, he walks out and he sits outside and he's waiting. Police and ambulance arrive and he's sitting on the steps covered in blood, acting like nothing's wrong. He thinks that he did a good job and that he ended her life. Let me be clear. The fact that you're sitting there and you're telling medical professionals and you're telling investigators that you felt like you ended her life, and you're just as calm as can be about it, it's clear that this wasn't a crime of passion. This was him punishing her for daring to leave him. If he couldn't have her, what's that saying? No one else could. So after all the stuff that I've told you, after the fact that I've told you that this young lady was stabbed in the lungs and in the kidneys and in her back and all these other places, they give him 7 years, you guys. 7 years for attempted murder and grievous bodily harm. I don't understand how grievous bodily harm equates to 7 years. How attempted murder equates to 7 years. And that's the problem right there. That man tried to kill her. He thought he succeeded, and you give him 7 years. So he's given 7 years, you guys, and he serves 3. He is released just after a little over 3 years and a couple of months. He is released despite showing no remorse, despite saying in court that he only meant to punch them. He didn't mean to stab them. He forgot that he had a knife. The blade on the knife that he used on Kim and her mother was 7 inches long. How do you forget that you had a 7-inch blade in your hand? How is him serving 3 years after doing what he did to this young lady considered justice? How does that even show him that he was wrong for his actions? He was wrong for what he did to that family. It's insulting. It's wrong. It changed the course of Kim's life. She had scar tissue damage and was unable to conceive because of said damage. There was a lot of things that happened to her at her young age because of this man's actions. And he does 3 years. So he gets out and he dates a bunch of women significantly younger than him. He gets married, he gets divorced. He has kids. He is a predator with kids. At 37, he's dating a 14-year-old. He's abusive towards her, and he gets a charge with assault, but nothing happens. He then dates 19-year-old single mother Mairead. I might be saying her name wrong. Mairead. She moves in with him. A year later, he meets a woman by the name of Lisa. She's 17 with no family. It's clear he seeks out a certain type of woman. So now he has 2 women and he's in a polyamorous relationship. Mairead doesn't want this, but she's doing this because this is what he wants. So despite having the 2 of them and a camper outside and all these other things, they get married in 2003. Lisa is the bridesmaid for him and Mairead. He ends up having several children with the both of them. During this period, he's controlling and abusive. No surprise there, based on the information that I gave you of how he was at as young as 19. He does public appearances on TV, bragging about his women and how he has the camper outside because that's where he beds them, and that he has a desire for additional funds from the British government and how he wants a bigger house and all these other things on their dime. It, of course, is denied. He has all those efforts to no avail. He, in my opinion, is a pathological liar. He has no remorse. He lacks empathy because he couldn't even show it at times for his kids. He's manipulative. We'll get into it. So Lisa, who's this 17-year-old orphan, when she started dating Mick, gets to the point where she is tired of him and his controlling ways, of him trying to control the purse strings because he doesn't work. The 2 women work, but he doesn't work. The 2 women also get government assistance and everything is given to him. So she's tired of the financial, the emotional, and the physical abuse. All right. She develops her own mind and she wants out. So she does something extremely smart. She tells his wife that, I'm going to take my kids for a swim. And she takes her 4 children and she leaves his trifling butt. Good for her. Only problem is we all know that based on the story that I told you all about Kim, that this man doesn't do well when you leave him. So he comes up with this plan, right? He plans that he's going to frame her. He begins to plant the idea that Lisa and her family were threatening to set fire to his home. Very random thought, but it just goes to show you how much he does not care about others and how much he's willing to commit certain crimes in order to get what it is that he wants. So he mentions that Lisa threatened to, put fire to his home to people he doesn't know, to acquaintances and friends. In May, he posts on Facebook that the brother-in-law is actually the father of the eldest child. Because she sees this and she's tired of it, she calls him, which is what he wanted because he's trying to build a case up to make it seem like she's harassing him. So after she gets off the phone with him, he calls police, says that she threatened him and all these other things and he wants her arrested. The police aren't buying it. They say no. He is pissed. A court hearing was set for May 11 to work out custody for the kids because Milk Philpott was trying to take the kids from her. He tells people, don't worry about it. I got a plan, which doesn't make any sense because there was no reason for the courts to take away Lisa's kids from her. After all, she had the job. He didn't. She was a good and present mom. He was this father of 17 kids. So how is it that your plan is supposed to do so well? But the plan was that he was going to set fire to the home before the hearing and blame it on her. He'd rescue the children and act like he was a hero. So, because he's angry and because he resents her, he deliberately sets out to do this plan to frame Lisa. He lets her know, his wife, that he's going to do this. It doesn't make sense to me that a person would go through these lengths, that a person will be willing to sacrifice their own children to frame someone else, whether he meant to unalive them or not, that he was willing to go this far. He tells Mairead, this is what we're going to do. And rather than stopping him, she helps him. Their front door has a hole in it for the mail. So these dummies decide that they're going to put an accelerant on the floor in that area to make it look like somebody just poured it in the hole, right? Mick then approaches his friend Paul, says, I'm going to need your help. I need you to remove the containers that I'm using to light this house on fire so that, when investigators come, they don't see it. They can't link it to me. Paul is another person that clearly has an opportunity to save these children, and he doesn't. So, what do? He uses the accelerant. Paul grabs the containers and walks away, and they light the house up. The fire spreads up the stairs and blocks off what should have been an exit. The fire spreads so quickly that it engulfs the house. It spreads so quickly that Jade, John, Jack, Jesse, Jaden, and Dwayne did not have a chance to escape. The thought of that is awful to me. There are video clips with two male neighbors that ran into the house attempting to save the kids. These two men who did not know the family or the kids heard that there were kids inside, saw the house on fire, and risked their own lives while they had children and families of their own to save these children, while the father and the mother are just standing outside doing nothing. Anybody in their right mind can't imagine doing that. I cannot imagine standing outside in this safe space while anyone that I love is in danger, especially if my kid is inside and there's no way out. There's no way I'd be able to just stand there. Those men to this day are still traumatized by what they witnessed in that event. So Dwayne, out of the kids, is the only one that survives the fire and is taken to the hospital, but he's severely burned. His other sibling passed on the scene. Within minutes of the fire, you got Mick telling people that this was because of Lisa, that Lisa and her family did it. Lisa did this and Lisa did that, which as a result of this, investigators have Lisa come down to question her, but they quickly realize she didn't have anything to do with it. After a few days of being in the hospital, as I said, Dwayne passes, and Mick decides that he's going to get on camera. He's going to get on camera after you just lost 6 kids to thank people, you guys. The last thing any of us would be thinking about if we lost one person, let alone 6, is to get on a camera and to say thank you. I personally don't know if you would be able to pick me off of the floor, let alone have me sit up in front of all these cameras with all these clicks saying thank you. This is what he said. I want to thank my 3 oldest children because they're helping us to cope with what's going on. There's a young lad called Daniel Stevenson who tried to get in the house, then the brothers, and of course the poor firemen, the police, the ambulance doctors, the nurses. I'm going to leave a clip down below so you can see it. Literally, everybody who tried to help save our children. He's fake crying with the tissue, pushing up the tissue against his face like this with no tears. We've decided that through our son, Dwayne, the last one to pass away, that we're going to donate his organs to saving a child. That makes us happy and it takes a bit of the pain away. And we can't express our gratitude to everybody that's been concerned with the case because of what's been going on. And I've actually been, down to our home, and what we saw, we just cannot believe it. You're crying about the burning up of the home? Or are you crying about the loss of life? As I said before, who does that? No one who lost a child in that way immediately would come out to say these things. And here's the thing. He didn't say, can anybody help find this person? If you know someone who could have committed a crime, let me know this and let me know that. Instead, he's like, please leave him and his family alone. Meanwhile, you're sitting up here doing a press conference. Supposedly after the performance, he walks out and he had a fit and he was crying on the floor and whatever else. Then minutes later, they saw him outside enjoying a cigarette. So he attempts to present himself as this grieving father, showing that he is devoted to the media. However, it's not true. And things begin to crumble. Their stupid mother is crying at times. It sounds harsh, but she's stupid. Because I'm not sure how much of it I believe about her really being sad. I know she was in an abusive situation, but there are lots of abuse victims who have put their life at risk in order to save their kids. And at no point did she try to save her kids. Her intentions were not to have her children killed, is what she would say later on. But I do not feel like I should have any sorrow for her because she allowed it. She didn't protect her kids. And you guys, she's currently free. So he's making all these faces and sounds like he's crying, but he's not crying. Investigators dive deeper into the situation and what led up to the fire. And during their investigation, they realized that Mick isn't this man that he's trying to present himself as. They realized that he has this huge, long history of DV, even against his own wife. So Mick is arrested and charged with multiple counts of manslaughter for the deaths of his children and arson with the intent to endanger life. I personally feel like I hate the fact that because he didn't mean for the kids to pass, that he gets charged with manslaughter. I personally don't feel like you could possibly light a house on fire and feel like that couldn't have turned into that type of situation. Because Mick only cares about Mick. So they have an 8-week trial, and it's revealed that his manipulative behavior was far worse than what we thought it was. Jurors hear that Mick had been violent and controlling towards Lisa, and when she left and she took her children, he became obsessed with getting Lisa and the kids back. That he started the fire to frame her for the crime and to win custody of the children. Prosecutor Richard Latham, Latham, because I may be saying that wrong, QC, said the plan had gone completely wrong within 2 minutes because the fire was far bigger than the defendants expected. The court heard that the trio planned to get all 6 children into one bedroom at the back of the house because, as I said, Paul, his friend, helped get rid of the container. So that's what I mean by trio. But the back of the house where they could be rescued through a window by a pre-placed ladder. Jurors were told that Mick was to act like the hero and the victim, rescuing everybody and blame it on Lisa. At the time of sentencing, this is what the judge said to Mick. Let me be clear. What you intended plainly was to subject your children to a terrifying ordeal. They were to be awakened from their beds in the middle of the night with their home on fire so you could rescue them and be hero. The terror was the price that they were going to pay for your callous selfishness. In fact, they paid for it with their 6 young lives. They had no chance of survival, and I am quite sure that when you set fire, you were not thinking about them because you simply did not care. You were going to get your own way. It has been said on your behalf that you were a good father. Lisa said so, and as did others. They said you loved your children. But I cannot give that description to a man who acted as you did. I agree. You lied to the police, and you lied to the jury. Ever since the fire, your life has been a performance for the public and the police. And then in this court, your conduct has been punctuated by collapses and shows of distress designed to evoke sympathy where none is merited, designed to manipulate emotion. I accept you have lost 6 children. I very much regret that everything about you suggests that your grief has very often been simulated for the public gaze. In other words, you sit here acting like you're grieving, but it's an act. You've made sure that Marie stuck to the story, checking with her at every opportunity that she was going to that she wasn't going to stray, as you put it. You knew that Mairead Philpott would do almost anything for your approval, to please you, to get your attention, as she put it. Without you, she never would have become involved in this plan. Because she failed to put her children before you, she has lost all of them. Nothing I have seen in your conduct before and during this trial gives me any reason to believe that you had the slightest concern for her. She too was expendable. The maximum sentence for manslaughter is life in prison. You are a disturbingly dangerous man. Your guided principle is what McPhill wants, he gets. You have no moral compass. I have no hesitation in concluding that these 6 offenses are so serious and the danger you pose is so great that the only proper sentence is one of life imprisonment, and that sentence I impose upon you. The law requires for me to impose a period of years that you will serve before you are considered for parole. Y'all, it's different in the UK. This man can qualify for parole. To reach that period, I must identify the determinate sentence you would have served had I not imposed a life sentence. The determinate sentence would have been one of 30 years imprisonment. I am required by Parliament to have that to reflect that where this a determinate sentence, you would only have to serve half. The minimum period you must therefore serve before you are considered for parole is one of 15 years. So all he has to serve is 15 years before he's considered, but I hope that he has to stay there permanently. From that, I deduct 307 days to reflect the time you have already served on remand, to give a term of 14 years and 58 days. Whether or not you are ever released will be the matter for the parole board. I hope that parole board looks at those babies' faces over and over and over again and reminds themselves of what he did, and I hope he's never released. To their mother, he said, as a result of what you did in the early hours of May 11, 2012, all your children lost their lives, and you have lost all your children. I accept that you feel their loss profoundly and that your grief is real. It is clear from what has been said that your children were your route to fulfillment. You loved them and cared for them. Now, I don't know if I really believe that, but this is what the judge is saying. I have already made it clear that this was Michael Philpott's plan. I accept that he treated you as a slave, and you were prepared to put up with that. As became clear during the trial, you were prepared to go to any lengths, however humiliating, to keep him happy. You pointed out that you had stood up to him in the past. That is why when he asked you for a divorce on no fewer than 3 occasions, you refused him, meaning you have stood up to him for things. Why didn't you stand up to him for this? That was a request you simply were not prepared to accommodate whatever he said. It is inescapable, therefore, that when something was important enough to you, you were capable of exercising a choice which was not his choice. These were your children. Your first responsibility surely was to them. Instead, you joined in him with his plan, putting his obsession with Lisa above the safety of your children. The reality of the plan you went along with and helped execute was that your children were to be frightened out of sleep in the middle of the night and rescued by their father from a fire that should have never been started. The risks were obvious and overwhelming, and anyone who has heard the harrowing wailing from you on the 999 call can hear your realization that this had gone horribly wrong and your children were in mortal danger. But by then it was too late, and you bear the responsibility for that. You put Michael Philpott above your children, and as a result, they have died. After the fire, you supported him in his quest to get residence of the other children. You complied with his sexual demands to keep Paul Mosley on side, because it said that she was having sex with Paul and she was having sex with him in order to get Paul to not tell on him. You lied to the police and you stuck to the story, just as he asked you to the police and to the jury. You now have convictions, for 6 counts of manslaughter of your children. I'm quite satisfied that a determinate sentence is appropriate in the case, but it must reflect the magnitude of these offenses. The sentence I pass is one of 17 years imprisonment. That's a big deal out there. Or of that, you will have to serve 1/2, at which point you will be released on license. If you commit any further offenses during the operational period of the license, you will be liable to be recalled and you may have to serve the balance of your sentence. Any time that you have spent on remand will be deducted from the period you are to serve. As I said, she is free. She served a little over 7 years. I personally think that she should have to do just as much time as him. Paul was also sentenced to 17 years. He was released in May of 2001, and after serving half of his sentence, he was returned back to prison in 2020. Did I say 2000? May of 2021, he was released. Then in May of 2022, he has to go back because he breached the terms of his release. I'm not sure if he's out now. The court's decision, of course, was met with public outrage, as many people felt that the sentencing wasn't right given the severity of the crimes. Had they been in the United States, they probably would have gotten way more than that. I could see death being given to some of them. Well, I don't know, because the whole manslaughter element in it not being intentional, it just gives her, it just doesn't make sense that you thought you could save these kids with that type of fire and that many kids and all those other things. Anyways, so Mick's case is an unfortunate reminder of the consequences of domestic violence and the tragic loss of innocent lives. He's an example of the failures of the system to protect vulnerable individuals from abusive relationships. The impact of his actions have destroyed many, leaving behind pain and loss that will be felt for multiple families for multiple years to come. He got off easy, if you ask me. I don't care what he intended. 6 children are no longer here because of him and his wife. As I stated earlier, I don't want us to just remember Mick. I want us to remember Kim and the beautiful children who are no longer on this earth. Now, Kim has survived, but her life has changed. The other children are no longer here. So as I said earlier, rest in peace to Dwayne, to Jade, to John, to Jack, to Jesse, and to Jaden. Truly gone too soon. You guys, let me know your thoughts of this. I'm going to leave several links in the description. Make sure that I'm putting the YouTube clip that shows the video of him and his wife, the people responsible for the death of this child. It's just sad. And when I hear stories like this, it breaks my heart, because I wonder what would have happened had he not been given the opportunity to do this. Like, what would have happened if his wife spoke up? Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Until next time.